I believe that in this age of social media, where people are connected all the time, they're still disconnected when you need them.
We all know that everyone is carrying their phone and they're watching their phone. When you send a message to someone and it shows delivered, even though people have read it, they just don't respond.
For some reason, you cannot figure out whether that person is a man or a woman because
yes, that has happened a lot. Hi, Tony, where the Tony was really a woman and that person was called Tony. I've seen that.
I used to work with a team in Japan, and one of the senior leaders on that team, I think out of arrogance, would just always call me at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Ironically, every time people would butcher that
butchering her name,
and they would call her, and then she would just correct them.
Yeah.
But then it happens over and over. So
what do you do?
Sometimes I have seen, right, for emails that come out, like people using more, send from my iPhone. Or send for
take
this
the
device.
Time. That is such a classic catch.
Okay, so I've been very anxious today.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so I've been like sending some messages to some people to respond because of some deliverable that I had, and people are not responding. So should we talk about some business or messaging etiquettes in the
Yes,
show?
please. I think it's such a good topic to talk about because I believe that in this age of social media, where people are connected all the time, they're still disconnected when you need them. So I think we should talk about professional social messaging etiquette.
All right. So let's start with text messaging first.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay.
So Adnan, let me ask you something. You are one of the very rare people in today's world that I know whose iMessage receipts are still on. I can always tell when you read my message, and you always respond right away. So kudos to you. I love that.
That is correct. And there's a reason I do this. Because I feel that when you respond to, or when you send a message to someone and it shows delivered, even though people have read it, they just don't respond.
Yes. There is people that I legitimately know that read messages, and when you say, hey, why aren't you responding? They're like, oh, I want to keep my importance, so I'll just wait on the message forever.
So
and
what I don't understand is, even if you are busy, I can get it.
Yeah.
If you're busy, you can just say, I'm driving or I'm in a meeting.
Yeah.
I can get back to you.
Yeah.
Right? A short line takes 10 seconds.
Just one of those canned lines.
Yeah.
Let me call you back. Let me message you back. Whatever.
And that's why people have disabled the read receipt.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel that when someone is sending you a message, it's your obligation to show that importance to that person.
Yes.
Right? Show them that you are also important, that we can prioritize. And if you're not able to, then you can always say, hey, I'm not available, but I'll get back to you.
Yes.
That's a very polite way.
That shows respect, that shows dignity, that shows professionalism, and that shows that you care. I think being so busy in this world of social media, we've forgotten that the world is about caring for each other. I think people have got so egoistic that they feel that if they respond quickly to a text message, then it would mean that they're desperate or,
or not important
or something like that. And I think it's ridiculous that people have lost what was really important, was just social etiquette. So if you ask me, in my opinion, if you receive a text message, especially professional, let's talk about professionalism. It's really important that you at least respond to that text message, because 9 times out of 10 you are goddamn it on your phone, and you're doing 12 other things.
Exactly right. So we all know that everyone is carrying their phone and they're watching their phone. So you just notice what happened when we were coming in today. We were stuck on an intersection because that lady was checking her phone.
In the middle of an intersection, making a left, stopping all the traffic and responding to text messages in her SUV.
So we know everyone is checking their phone, right? So now that issue around, I'm not going to respond. Everyone knows that you have probably checked it. You have probably read the message. If there are many hours have passed and you're not responded, they know it is not possible.
So Adnan, I think it's insecure people. It's people who are so insecure that they have to receive an ego boost in the fact that they maintained more importance by not responding to a text message fast enough, where I personally believe in the exact opposite of that. I think if you're a confident person, if you're a secure person, you want to make people gravitate towards you and not away from you. Coming back to professionalism, professional etiquette calls for people to respond to text messages as soon as you see them, even if you don't have an answer. It's just polite to get back to people and say, let me look into this. I will circle back with you.
Yeah, so but there are multiple opinions on that. So I was talking to another person and he said, yes, that's true that you respond, but do I need to respond?
Yes.
So there's also this preference and this expectation that you need to set early on with certain people, right? Some people don't feel like that text is the Bible mode of communication. They feel like you should do a phone call or you should do an email. It could be in a business setting, right? You may be a salesperson, you're trying to approach someone. And they even if they have seen your text, they may not want to respond. So I think on that scenario, you should do this expectation setting early on. When you're responding through emails,
1000%
you can ask them, hey, is it okay to text you? Or if somebody is giving you their phone number, does it imply that you should be able to communicate with them over text? But ideally, you should set the expectation with that person. And be able to engage. Right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I've noticed is sometimes you send a message to someone and the person doesn't respond. And you are being anxious. What do you do if someone has sent you a text message and you're so busy? Or what do you do? Do you take a couple of days maybe to respond?
No,
or what,
never,
what do you do?
Never. People who know me, you know that as soon as I see to a fault, as soon as I see my text messages, I respond to them. So for professional rules, Adnan, I have a rule that, when the day starts, anytime after 6 a.m. to when the day ends, anytime by 10 p.m., I could receive a professional text. If it is between the hours of 8 and say 6 p.m., you'll immediately see a response from me and I'll say, hey, I'm in a meeting, I will get back to you. And then before that day ends, I usually get back to people because that's just professional etiquette to me. It's absolutely necessary that you show people that you actually care for them, which if you do, then why not show it to people so that they see that you actually care for them? The other thing is, I am always available to my team between the hours of 6 and 10 p.m. If there is a text message that comes in during those hours, I will certainly respond to that, right? But if that message is later than 10 p.m., it's crossing the line of professionalism.
And you have already set that expectation. That's great.
Because you have to.
Yeah, so I feel like even in our signatures, right, if you're communicating, we should start to put that in.
Such a great idea. I'm available on my cell between these hours, and that way people know that you're going to be responding to them. Especially professionally, it's so important. And that, even at home, you have a family, I have a family. I know there is it's a very open code in our family that if one of us is not available, we will always text each other and say, hey, I'm in a class or I'm in a meeting or I'm running to a meeting and I will get back to you. So why not that same level of professionalism with your people that you work with every day, where you set the expectation when you meet somebody, here's my cell phone number. I think there's an unspoken expectation, like when you hand somebody your cell phone number, you've just told them that you're comfortable being approached.
That's what I was asking. That's more of a implied thing. Right? There is that consent. Because sometimes you don't necessarily get a consent if you have found their phone number from their signature or their LinkedIn or anywhere. They may not be comfortable. So you should better set that expectation up front. But there are a few other tips I want to share for text messaging is, which I personally have faced. people tend to respond to text message very quickly.
Correct.
So sometimes there's autocorrect, and the message is not ill-formed, and they use some emojis that sometimes doesn't relay the right emotions or the right message. Right? So be careful before you're sending. Take your time. Right? Go through that, and then also just be conscious of what you said, the timing.
Yeah.
Right? When should someone be available or not? The expectation.
Yeah, I mean, there's an unspoken professional expectation that you're not going to just pick up the phone and give somebody a buzz at 10 o'clock at night because you're out partying somewhere. That's not at all professional. Does it happen? Hell yeah. And it's just like, I scratch my head a lot of times because I'm like, there has to be a level of professional sensitivity. I mean, I'll give you a real life example. I used to work with, I will save the innocent. I used to work with a team in Japan. And one of the senior leaders on that team, I think out of arrogance, would just always call me at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And
did you know that you're in a different time zone?
I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
So the first time that phone call came through, a very senior leader, like the CEO of a company, and the first time that call came through, this was many years ago, I picked it up because I thought it was an emergency. Like, I literally thought something must be wrong. So I picked up the phone, and I picked up the phone, and before I could even say that it was 4 a.m., and I wanted to hear what the other side had to say. And he carried on a conversation as if it was perfectly fine and it was bright and early in my world and that I should be available to talk to him.
Yes.
So, I cut him short as he was speaking, and I said, do you realize that it's 4 a.m. where I live and it is not professionally appropriate to call me at this time? So I'm going to go back to bed and try to get some more sleep. I will certainly reach out to you when it's professional work hours for you. And I hung up.
Oh, wow.
And I hung up. And this was the CEO of a company. And then it happened again. And I saw the phone ring because I'm not one of those people that puts my phone on do not disturb or something at night because God forbid someone needs you. So I saw the phone ring and I put it right into my voicemail. And it happened like 4 or 5 times. The 6th time, he stopped calling me in stupid hours.
That's good. So that's the expectation setting.
Yeah.
Right? If you're able to respond, and then they're going to feel like, okay, this is fine with that person.
Yes.
So this is in your hand.
Because people sometimes want to test the buttons on your, on what will really piss her off.
Yes.
And instead of being rude, I think it's really nice to be professional, but set the expectations. But I also think, Adnan, something that you said earlier, usually when I hand my business card to somebody, it's a digital card. When I hand it to someone, I'm usually very open about saying, if you ever need me, reach out on text messages, because I travel so much that I may miss your email. Mm-hmm. And if you think it's something that you want responded to the same day, always follow up your email with a text message.
Yeah. So I feel like these days the lines have been blurred between the professional life and the business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the professional life and the personal life. People have been working remote.
Yeah.
Right? So it's now expected for you to be available all the time. I feel like the expectation setting needs to be done, which is very important.
Yeah.
And the other tip that I want to have is, if you have like a work phone, then you need to really set that expectation. The other thing I want to talk about is, which is related to it, is emails.
Yes.
Right? So emails is another important one, and I've seen a lot of blunders around emails. Right? The thing that we started out early on, and then there was a lot of corporate training that we went through, and I want to just bring this up, starting with like the subject of the email. Yes. Right? Which is like, so you were showing me a message, right? What was that message? Like someone said, Sanya?
Are you interested in this? That was the subject of the email. Coming to a CEO, and the person just asking, are you interested in this?
Maybe they're trying to create a curiosity.
They're trying to create curiosity, but in my opinion, it's really unprofessional. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm the person that will put the subject of the email very, very specifically. And also because we work with the government, all these procurement officers and people, Adnan, they don't have the time. They're receiving 300 emails in a day.
Yeah.
Most of
on
us
average,
are
right? On average,
100.
the stats on average, a person receives 120 emails in a day.
Wow. See, so we usually receive about 100 emails in a day. But most people that are in very busy professions, where the outreach is very high, receive about 300 emails in a day. So how do you get their attention? When you show how organized and professional you are, the minute somebody sees the subject line of your email.
Yeah, so I feel like the subject line should be very specific.
Yes.
So if you are looking for someone to respond, like there is an action required, right? You should state that.
Yeah.
If it's about a very specific topic, so there is an RFP you're trying to deal with, state that RFP.
Yeah.
You also should highlight the urgency of that. And then when you're sending the message,
set the priority.
Set the priority and let people know that you're expecting.
Yes.
I see a lot of times people send emails and then they complain that, the person not responding.
Yeah.
The question is, did you set that expectation?
Yes.
Did you let them know in the body of the message?
Not just the body of the message, Adnan. I think it's a really good practice to just say in the subject line of the email, for your approval, or need you to review this, or just review or approval or something like that. So that if you really need something approved today, then how does an executive know that?
Exactly.
So you just put approve. They know now that you want them to approve something, and then you put a hash or something and you say, the name of the project or the name of something that you need, so that it's suddenly you've just told them what to do. Even if they don't read your email, they'll just go scroll down to the attachment and know that they have to sign it.
Yeah. So everyone needs to remember that there's so many emails that everyone has to go through.
Yeah.
Right? They're bombarded with that. They're also looking to prioritize.
Yeah. So how do you manage this? Because you're a busy man. You have a very, very broad role. You receive emails from customers, partners, and your sales teams. How do you manage that?
So I go through it. I skim through the stuff as it comes along pretty quickly.
Okay.
And then the things that require deeper attention.
Yeah.
Or emails that are really long.
Yeah.
And I need time to go through it. I flag them. So I flag them for my own self, right? That these are the things that I have to go through.
Yeah.
Those that require quick answers, I just respond if
right
possible.
Away. Yeah.
Or I look at, what is the expectation? Is that an informational email for me?
Yeah.
Or is that more of an action required email? Now, this is a very important issue that many people miss. How do you know that it is intended for that person to respond? So it's a very common mistake people make that they don't differentiate between to and CC.
Yep.
So people are generally put on CC when they are expected then to respond.
Yes. And the minute you see a CC email, I usually put those to the side because it's for
more informational, right?
Yeah.
But it's a common mistake.
It is?
That people don't realize that if you're expecting that person to respond to this, it needs to go on the to line.
Yeah.
And the other issue is sometimes to prevent someone's privacy, they are put on BCC.
Yeah.
But they don't realize that if someone does a reply all to the message, that
they're
person is not going to get it.
Yeah.
So they're getting dropped. So these are small sensitivities that you should consider when sending email.
Such a great point.
So there's also best practice. What I typically do is I follow some specific rules.
Okay.
When I compose the message, the first thing I do is I try to compose the message, make sure if there is an attachment, the attachment is there.
Yeah.
If I'm referring to a link, that link works.
Yes.
That is another common mistake. People put links and they don't work.
Or they put a link and it's like 5,500 words coming in because they just copied the link rather than putting it.
So that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So if you have to put links, you should use hyperlinks.
Absolutely.
Right? So that is another good practice.
Yeah.
So putting those hyperlinks in the message, I then make sure that the message is as concise as possible. So first time when I compose the message, I reread it again. can I take some weasel words out?
Yeah.
Can I take some redundant sentences out?
Yes.
Is that going to be helpful for that person?
Yes.
Am I making sure what I'm expecting that person to do
Yeah.
is clearly outlined?
Yes.
So most of the emails, if they are not informational, you are looking for someone to do something.
Yes.
Right? So maybe you're inviting someone to a dinner. So do you know if that person is able to get there? Have you provided all the directions and all those details?
So true.
So you should always think about, is that person able to get all that information in there?
Yes.
Right? Then the last thing I do, I put the audience, the target audience, like the to and CC. Because typically when you start with that and compose the message, 8 out of 10 times you will forget the more important person.
Exactly.
So once you have composed the message, at that point you should go and put everyone in there.
I have a secret practice that I've always done, maybe like for 20 years now. When I'm composing an email and I've put everybody, like I'm starting to write the email, I usually put a hash in the to or the CC column so that accidentally the email doesn't get sent halfway through. So sometimes you have all your audience in the email and you're still typing the email, and I've seen a lot of people send it in haste or accidentally send the email. So always have a hash, which you can remove at the very end. It gives you a chance to review the to and CC fields as well. But it gives you the opportunity to make sure you have an attachment. If you committed in the email, like you said, to have an attachment, it gives you the chance to, check your work before you send it. The other practice, like you said, concise, is so important. But nobody has the time to read a paragraph. So what do? If I am sending an email out, it'll most likely be bullet points and very concise.
TLDR, short and quick.
That's it. So that the person knows, okay, this, got it. Right? It's done.
It's done. Yeah. And that's how I think we should communicate over IMs, right? So now it's a very common practice that every organization have their internal IM and chat messaging that you use for collaboration discussions. So we should follow a very similar approach there as well.
What about phone calls, Adnan?
That's another good one. So let me ask you, how do you handle those phone calls? Let's start with a scenario where somebody calls you and you know that person and you're busy. You let it go on a voicemail and then you respond via text, or how do you deal with it?
Usually, if I have to send a call to voicemail, instead of actually sending it to voicemail, I pick the canned messages on message and say, I'm in a meeting, or I'm getting out of a meeting. I will call you in 30 minutes or 2 hours or by the end of the day. Something. You'll never just see my phone go straight into voicemail with no correspondence. That just is rude, in my opinion. It makes me feel like even if you're busy, how long does it take for you to, instead of pushing the voicemail button, push the message button and just say, I'll call you back. To me, authenticity matters. Genuinity, sincerity.
That's the most important thing. I feel like, all these different channels are available. Yeah. But that genuineness is lacking. Yeah. Is missing. Yeah. And that actually impacts that relationship that people want to build. So I feel like, that sensitivity to how people think, again, doesn't mean that you should not care about your privacy. Yeah. But at the same time, you should also think about that other person, because that other person may have a genuine need for that information that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Okay.
And that actually brings up to another tip. Right? Okay. Sometimes I have seen, for emails that come out, like people using more, send from my iPhone. Or send for this device.
That is such a classic catch. Take the time to fix that, please. I don't know what phone you use. I don't want to know. I don't want to know that you're sending it from your phone. Your signature block is the professional etiquette.
Is that a laziness or what? Like, how difficult is that?
I don't know.
To update with your signature. So I feel like the signatures are very important.
Yes.
Because all that expectation setting that we're talking about, that could be done through the signature.
100,000%.
If you can put your hours, your mode of communication. If the text is okay, you can put your text, the phone number there. If it's not okay, you can take it out.
Yeah.
Right? So that's going to set the right expectation from it. So signature should be very wisely used.
Absolutely. And it's your professional impression on people. So why waste the chance to leave that impression? And it can communicate so many things without you having to say any of that.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing we didn't talk about. When you are corresponding with somebody in an email or a text message, and for some reason you cannot figure out whether that person is a man or a woman because
yes, that has happened a lot. Hi, Tony, where the Tony was really a woman and that person was called Tony. I've seen that. That was like
so, maybe take 5 minutes to do some searches on LinkedIn. And
there has to be some detective work that is needed, right? Because and also not every Michael needs to be called
or
like a Mike.
Michael doesn't need to be Mike. Arveen doesn't need to be Irene, right? Be respectful with people's names. Yeah. The first instance of your interaction with somebody should be very professional. So it's good to go with their formal name. And then if they are comfortable telling you that you should call them Rob or Dick or Rich or something like that, then they'll do that. But your first encounter should be professional. The other thing is a lot of people will see your signature block at the bottom, like Arveen Kohli, and then they'll respond to you and they'll be like, "Hi, Kohli." It's like
so this is another common practice I've seen, like people addressing you with the last name. So how do you feel about that?
If you have to address somebody with their last name, then say Mr. Hassan or Mrs. Kohli, right? You're not going to say, "Hi, Kohli," like it's not my first name. Or there's sometimes people that you actually know for years, and every single time you meet them, they will still say, "Hi, Irene, it's been so long since I saw you." And I'm like, oh my God. For starters, maybe you should know my name.
So this is the incident I've seen normally at workplace, right? When you get on conference call in a meeting, I know there was a lady and her name was slightly difficult to pronounce, but she would always tell people how to pronounce.
Yeah.
But ironically, every time people would butcher that
butchering her name,
and they would call her, and then she would just correct them.
Yeah.
But then it happens over and over. So
what do you do? So actually, that is a prime example. There's somebody on my team who's a German man, and he has a difficult German name. And he now, because people are, they can't catch how to say his name right, he's come up with his first and last initial as the American version of his name. If you don't know how to say my name, you can just call me with my first initial and my last initial, and that's my name.
As long as that person is fine with it.
If they're fine with it, but he set the expectation. And I've seen that every time he'll come on a call, he'll set that expectation from the get-go. But even then, some people will still choose to call him by his first name and mispronounce it.
So let's not do that, right? Maybe that's the takeaway from this show.
Yes.
That be cognizant of people's privacy, their expectations, their preferences. Yeah. And I think this way you may be able to establish better relationships.
Yes.
Whatever business you are in, if you are in sales, you definitely need to honor some of that.
And also be authentic. Be a real person to people you work with, because the sincerity and the authenticity flows through.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.